What's up, YouTube? So this one is War. What was their musical peak and prime? Oh, one of the baddest bands that come out the Bay Area. One of the baddest bands ever. Eric Burden and the style in the War. There's only so many bands that I can think of that could pull off the sounds that they did and make it work and still come off funky, but yet have a catchy crossover groove because they were like Mandrell with that the different fusion in the sounds, but like Earth, Wind, and Fire, they hit with it. But unlike them, they just had this real intriguing crossover appeal without trying that just was like they had catchiness in the middle of their songs. It's almost like you would do songs and in the way you would do them, but yet they had so much appeal. It's uncanny. Obviously, when All Day Music spilled the wine, songs like that, they just took on a life of their own. Obviously, Cisco Kid, they had some edgy with the grit of the vocals, but they just caught on. They just hit on. They like just attached. Why can't we be friends? They had anthems. They had political anthems that were catchy, but yet they were connected. I mean, it's amazing when I hear what War was able to do. When you think about it, they are one of my favorite bands, by the way. I think part of my 10 greatest bands for me. They're one of my favorite funk bands and all that, and I just like how they were very effective. Lowrider sounded just like the song. When you can go hear these songs 40, 50 years later in commercials and they still work, that should tell you how effective the songs were. The vocals, they weren't trying to be some crooning all smoothed out group. They just did what they come natural. They had this intricacies musically that just connected the dots. I mean, when you hear them, it's like, yeah, song still bumps, still got a groove to it, still got life to it, pockets on point, and they adapted well to the changes. I mean, they still had hits. The last big one they had was Galaxy, and that Star Wars vibe and the way that song starts off in that bass, dun, dun, that groove, that's one of the best grooves that Stevie Wonder didn't put out of after Do I Do. I mean, War had a stank, put the stank on it. One of those bands that you couldn't even really describe it because it was kind of like it sounded like garage band funk, but it worked. The vocals, the tone, the vibe, but it had machismo, but it was smoothed out in between that it was catchy. So when you think about their musicality, the instrumentations, you'd be hard pressed. You can make a case that I'd say that old Cool in the Game was like a more commercialized version of what War did, and of course Mandrell was the one that had a sonic boom towards that. And Earth and Fire, people had to check them out though. They had to check them out because they were very distinctive. You couldn't go nowhere without hearing what they were doing, and that's amazing because, like I said before, people may not be familiar with the group's band's name, but they know the songs. You got about 4 or 5 songs that still to this day will get played on TV, on commercials, and still hit and still bump. So that's a testament to the greatness of War. And I'd say their peak and prime was like 72 to about 77, but they had so many big hits that it seems longer than that because they hit in the early 80s too. You know, they had Outlaw and You Got the Power, synth based funk. So they hit in the early 80s too. But it's the 70s stuff that was really where the money was at. So still sounds good. Anyway, let me know what you think about War's Peak and Prime. Please hit like, subscribe, welcome thoughts, comments, and I do respond. Thank you. Wash your hands, keep your mind clear, watch out for another. Share it if you like. Hit that membership. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. I'm out one time. Peace.